Greetings, adventurers, and well-met Master of Dungeons here on the Master of Dungeons Twitch channel, twitch.tv/the Master of Dungeons. It is Wednesday afternoon. Time for some Tavern Talks of the Shifty Boar, where we discuss playtest material, homebrew stuff, things going on that are new in Dungeons & Dragons. Something new in Dungeons & Dragons coming out very soon, of course, will be the third adventure in the Season 4 story arc of the Dreams of the Red Wizards adventures for Dungeons and Dragons and Adventurers League, the organized play for D&D, and that is the storyline that I am the story lead for. The new adventure, Something in the Way, is in the final checks. Should be probably going up here on the DM's Guild here very, very soon. We've just finished up the final adventure over the weekend. We sent it out to our DMs who are going to premiere it this coming weekend at the virtual D&D weekend that we are partnered with Baldwin Games and Wizards of the Coast. We run events there. Obviously, we've done 15, I shouldn't say obviously, we've done 15 adventures in the storyline. The final one, Battle at Thaymount, is premiering, like I said, this weekend. It is an epic adventure, which means as an epic adventure, there are multiple players, or multiple tables, I should say, playing the same adventure. And there's interaction between the tables, all of them with a final goal. They have a victory condition. If they win, they get some really cool stuff. If they lose, then bad things are really going to happen for them. But there's always a caveat for them to be able to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat at the end if certain players take certain actions. So it's going to be really fun. But that third adventure, Something on the Move, I believe. Something on the Move is due out very soon here. The first one is Something in the Way and Something Wicked. Those are the first two that are already out there. So if you have a chance, check them out. Again, they are written for Adventurers League, but you do not have to play Adventurers League rules to play the adventures. It's a really fun storyline. Starts off at Tier 2, expecting to play the first adventure with a 5th level character, and then if you play every one of them in order, all the way through up to the final epic adventure, which we are going to have rules for. I believe we have 4 total epics. There's going to be rules in each one of them for playing it as a single table as well. But if you start off with the first one at 5th level and play all the way through to the end, you will be 20th level if you play by the milestone experience points. So you could have a wonderful, fun campaign following this storyline. If you want to start off at 1st level, we did have what's called basically an on-ramp for the adventures. For the Dreams of the Red Wizards, they have what are called introductory adventures. There's 4 of them that are evergreen, that are on the Dungeon Masters Guild as well. You can play those. They'll get you from 1st to 4th from 1st to 5th level. Alternatively, if you want, you can play the Spelljammer Academy adventures. That should be up on D&D Beyond. You should be able to purchase them. You might be able to purchase them on DM's Guild. I'm not sure, but I know that you can get them for free on the D&D Beyond. I think they're free, if I recall. But there are 4 adventures that take place in the Spelljammer Academy, and all of that. That can also be all 4 of them. Of course, you can get from 1st to 5th level, playing all 4 of those, and then start the Dreams of the Red Wizards Obscured Devotions storyline. The last story arc 3, was Terminal Ambitions, and we kind of pick up with Obscure Devotions shortly after, probably about maybe 6 months to a year after the events of the Terminal Ambitions series. So that's some news that's coming out. Actually, let me post the website for the virtual D&D weekends, which we run once a month. Not sure if we're going to be running one in February. As February, we do have our Winter Fantasy Convention, which takes place in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It is one of the largest, I'm not sure if it's the largest, but one of the largest conventions that runs almost strictly nothing but Adventurers League D&D. There is some homebrew, there are some author-only events, there is a few other tables of games that are D&D related, using 5th edition rules, but using different settings and such like that. But hundreds of tables of Adventurers League, Dungeons & Dragons. With Baldwin Games, we also have our Moonshade storyline, which we are able as a premier organizer with Wizards of the Coast for Adventurers League. and they write adventures in the Moonshae Isles. Maleficent Delusions is the current storyline. The first one was Rising Shadows. There was like 20 trilogies of adventures and some specials that you could play just by attending in-person conventions and such like that. But this is a new storyline. They're about getting pretty close to finishing that storyline as well. Plus, we also have the Dragonlance, Vault of the Undying, which is a companion Adventurers League adventures to the hardcover Shadow of the Dragon Queen. So you can play that storyline as well by attending the virtual D&D weekends or the live in-person conventions like Winter Fantasy, Gen Con, Origins Game Fair, PAX East, PAX Unplugged, all these different conventions where Baldwin Games and Wizards of the Coast are running Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League play. But it is, of course, Wednesday, Tavern Talks with Shifty Boar. We've been going over the playtest material for playtest, Player's Handbook Playtest 8. It's the overall 9th overall playtest for 1D&D, which I'm used to saying next year. This year, 2024, is the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons, so they'll be coming out with some brand new core books, Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, that are going to have some updated rules. Still 5th edition, still backwards compatible, pretty much the same mechanics that you're using in 5th edition rules. So if you want to playtest this material, you can go to D&D Beyond, get all of the playtest material and download them. Alternatively, if you want to join my Discord server for the Master of Dungeons community Discord server, you can find that below here on Twitch, and click on the Discord tab there, and it will give you an invite to our Master of Dungeons community Discord. If you select your roles, make sure to select D&D News, and that will give you a spot where you can easily download all of the playtest material from the D&D 1 playtest from there as well. They've closed the surveys on this playtest just before Christmas, and we obviously it took about a 3-week break for the holidays, and plus finishing up the adventure we had to finish up writing, and we left off here with the Conjure Elemental spell. We've been going through some of the spells. If you want to play test any of this material, all you have to do is use the Player's Handbook, the 2014 normal 5th edition Player's Handbook, and then just supplement any of the playtest rules and use those instead of certain rules. Like for Conjure Elemental, instead of using the Conjure Elemental spell as it normally is, use the reworked version of this. As we scroll back up, you'll note that we also, and you can go back and watch some of the VODs, videos on demand here on Twitch, or you can go to our YouTube channel, which you can also get the link to below to see all the past ones. But they went over some different classes, the Barbarian, the Druid, and stuff like that here in the playtest. Basically, if you want to playtest any of these, make sure to check the newer playtests. If there was an older version of it and it's been updated due to surveys and such like that, that will be have newer updates to some of those classes to playtest the current stuff. And then we should be expecting another playtest packet coming in here soon. But I haven't read, other than seeing them on stream, I have not read any of them, other than I open it up right before we start the stream, and I just kind of give an honest, actual review, or my opinion, basically, of what they're doing with the changing of what additions and slight adjustments they're making to the rules. And we left off, I think December 13th was our last Tavern Talk stream. We did start back up on Sunday. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday break and are having a happy New Year. For those of you who are waiting for the Lunar New Year coming up here in the next few weeks, happy Lunar New Year as well. But now let's go ahead and check it out. We left off with Conjure Elemental. We're going to go through and see some of these differences of what they've changed. I don't have the D&D Beyond pulled up to check the old ones. We're just going to kind of look at what they've got so far. And they are basically kind of changing them around. Instead of you actually conjuring a full elemental, you're just conjuring elemental spirits. Which kind of, I'm just going to make the note of, they had actually had the very first playtest that they had done for the Druid. They actually had it to where you would have either a beast of the land, a beast of the air, or a beast of the water as a template, and then you would have certain adjustments depending on what your level was, and then they changed it back recently to being, the beasts again, and so many of them. I really, really liked the idea of them having just like a template, very similar to what they're doing with the elemental spirit template here, where you're not actually summoning a actual earth elemental. Your elemental is actually an elemental spirit that does either bludgeoning damage for earth, cold damage for water, fire damage for fire, and lightning damage for air. But it also can pull them in and restrain them, so it's getting rid of some of the stuff like whirlwind and all the different abilities that the actual elementals have themselves. So basically it's pulled into the creature if they fail their save, if it's large or smaller, and then gives them a restrained condition. At the start of each of its turns, the target must make a strength saving throw against your spell save DC. On a success, it frees itself. And on a failure, the target takes 48 damage of the same type as the spell attack. The spirit can only have one creature restrained at a time, and the damage is increased when you cast it at higher levels. That's actually pretty cool. I did really like the idea of being able to actually summon an actual elemental, but if the creature hits and they fail their save, you can restrain one of them, possibly doing extra damage each turn, plus, that's a big hit too, 8d8, that's a massive hit. But they don't have multiple attacks, it's just one attack. But if it hits, pretty big damage. And keep in mind, you can cast 5th level spells at 9th level. So it can restrain someone, and it can still attack. You can't restrain someone else if they've already have one creature restrained, but you can still attack each turn. So that's actually not too bad. That's pretty cool. I like that. Let's check out minor elementals before we scroll down to check out these other ones. So minor elementals at 4th level, so you can cast this at 7th. It's again Druid Wizard. They did go back to the actual class spell list instead of Arcane, Divine, and Primal, which is nice. Summon elemental spirits that float around you for the duration until the spell ends. Any attack you make deals an extra 2d8 damage when you hit a creature within 15 feet of you. This damage is bludgeoning, cold, fire, or lightning. Your choice when you make the attack. Additionally, the ground within 15 feet of you is difficult terrain for your enemies. It's any attack you make, so if you have multiple attacks, each one of them will deal 2d8 damage, as long as they're within 15 feet of you. That's pretty cool. You could have a wizard that's has conjured minor elementals, and then you're casting scorching rays. You can get like multiple rays. Each one of those rays deal so much damage, plus that extra 2d8 if you want to, if they're within 15 feet of you. And for every level, it increases by 2d8, and the difficult terrain increases. Fairly interesting. Let's see, Conjure Fey, 6th level. Means you can get it at 11th level as a caster, druid. Medium Fey Spirit, in unoccupied space you can see within range. Spirit lasts for the duration, looks like a Fey creature of your choice. When it appears, you can immediately make one melee spell attack against a creature within 5 feet of the spirit. On a hit, takes psychic damage. Huh. So it's interesting. It's got a frightened condition. I want to check out once we get down there with the frightened condition if it's just frightened of everything, because generally it's the target. Whatever you're frightened when you have the frightened condition, you're frightened of something. Usually the person, like a paladin, with their frightful presence or whatever, kind of like a dragon. If you're frightened by the dragon, there's certain conditions when you can see the dragon, you can't move towards the dragon, all of that. So my question would be: are they frightened of the medium Fey spirit? Or are they frightened of you? And teleport the spirit to an unoccupied space you can see. Within 30 feet of the space it left, and repeat the attack against the creature within 5 feet of it. So that's a bonus action. Yep. Oh, that's cool. Again, the 3d12 is interesting. How they just arbitrarily pull out these numbers. I've mentioned on more than one occasion during our tavern talks that I really would like to see them do templates and such very similar. I mean, I'm not saying this because their own Magic the Gathering as well, Wizards of the Coast. But when we put together back in the day, way back in the 90s, when we first started the ideas of template wording and stuff like that, that ended up becoming the standard for Magic. It's something that they really, really need to do with D&D. Certain things happen at certain levels. Certain things are something you're always going to have. Also makes it easier for creators, content creators, whether it be in social media or in DM's Guild or Drive Through RPG. It makes it easier for them to create things without having to not necessarily play test them, but at the same time that they're not going to be too powerful or too weak with those types of templates. Like if they do certain elemental damage, like fire, cold, lightning, poison, thunder, things like that, it's a certain amount. If they do something like necrotic or radiant, it's a certain amount. If they do psychic or force, they do a specific type of dice of damage. So interesting. I'm not sure if it's extremely powerful. I mean, it's also the whole frightened condition if they're frightened of you or frightened of the spirit. That'd be interesting to find out. And then what's the bonus for? Is it an extra D12 for everything higher? 2D12 for every slot higher. Okay, I can see that for being a 7th level and higher spells. And then we have Conjure Woodland Beings. Summon nature spirits that float about you, 5th level. So very similar to Conjure Elemental Spirits, Conjure Woodland Beings. It does force damage. It's almost like they're opening up Spirit Guardians for other classes. In addition, you can take the disengage action as a bonus action. Wow. Again, just initial reactions. I'm not sure why some of them do 2d8, 2 extra dice of damage, and then some of them just do 1 more dice of damage. And that is force damage, which is one of the hardest things to resist. All right, Cure Wounds. What do they do with Cure Wounds now? They mentioned something. Oh, yeah, that's right. They changed it to where it's more powerful. So instead of a D8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier, it's 2d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. It doesn't affect constructs and undead, obviously. And then at the same time, for every slot of level 2 or higher, you get 2 extra d8, which is, I think that's kind of cool because of the fact that obviously tier 1's very squishy. And when you roll 1d8 plus the spell casting ability modifier, you roll a 1. I mean, it's still a potential of rolling 2 1s on the 2d8 plus your ability modifier. So you might just get like a 5-point heal, but still, has the potential to being a little bit better with having the extra die in there. I like that. We went over Fount of Moonlight on the last stream, which was pretty cool, especially when the druids can cast now when they're in their beast forms. Let's check out Healing Word. I think they did the same with Healing Word. Yeah, instead of 1d4, it's 2d4 now. Still a bonus action. And then Mass Cure Wounds, they probably upped that as well. So 5d8. 6 creatures in a 30-foot radius sphere centered on that point. Mass Healing Word, probably increase that as well. Yep, 2d4 plus. Only thing that's different is that I'm not sure that the 5d8. I mean, you're using a 5th level spell. I would almost maybe have that up to like maybe 7 instead of a 2 additional every one like they have for Cure Wounds and Healing Word. Put that up to 7d8, and then you get an extra 1d8 for higher spell slot spent. Power Word Fortify is a new spell, right? Speak a word of power that fortifies up to 6 creatures you see within range. The spell bestows 120 temporary hit points. Okay, which are divided amongst. So you can basically give up to 6 creatures, 20 temporary hit points each. You can change that around to 5, 4, 3. That's really cool. I like that. And keep in mind, this is also coming from a Forever DM. Starry Wisp is a new cantrip. Action, 60 feet range. Verbal and somatic, instantaneous. Okay. You launch a mode of light at one creature or object within range, make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, the target takes 1d8 radiant damage until the end of your next turn. It emits dim light in a 10-foot radius and can't benefit from the invisible condition. And assuming it does cantrip dice. Yep. And see, this is the other thing when I was talking about the consistency. Certain things like level 5 is tier 2, level 11 is tier 3, level 17 is tier 4. Doing more of that as well. So that's the end of the spells. Interesting stuff. Going back, if you watch the VOD or the video on YouTube, I discussed the druids being able to cast while in wild shape now is really interesting. Now we're talking with the feats, of course. The feats will have their category, like this, a general feat. And if there's any prerequisites, it'll have those adjusted and the benefit of the feat there. And repeatable, if you can take the feat more than once. Like, for example, ability score improvement, prerequisite level 4+, which means you get it at 4th, generally 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and then 19th levels when you get your ability score improvement feats. Obviously, they're adding feats is not an optional thing anymore. They're putting them back into the standardized D&D thing, whereas in 5th edition it is optional. In the standard 5th edition rules. So some DMs don't use them. Adventures League does use that optional rule. Of course, it can increase one ability score of your choice by 2 or increase 2 of them by 1. Can't increase it above 20. Using this feat, however, if you're at least 19th level, that maximum can increase to 22. Oh, that's interesting. Sorry, it looks like my familiar's waking up. He's got a little bed right here beside me now. And of course, you can take that feat more than once because you can get them at those levels there. Now, these weapons, they did add weapon mastery to some of them, which have different abilities. If your character class has weapon mastery, you'll be able to use special abilities from the weapons now, which is interesting. I don't see any big changes here. Like damage wise, light hammer still D4, sickle still a D4. I'd really like to see the sickle go to a D8 or D6. I mean, you'd see more druids using them. Druids hardly ever, well, at least the druids that play at my table, and I do play with hundreds of players every year because of doing so many conventions, online events, client games, things like that. I hardly ever see anyone use sickles. Only recently, since the moon sickles have come out, have I started seeing some druids use them. Most of them use it just a quarterstaff for shillelagh and such like that, unless they have a staff of the woodlands, which is still one of the most powerful staffs in the game, and it is only rare, which is generally you're looking at uncommon items in tier 1, rare in tier 2, very rare tier 3, and then legendary in tier 4. And as a being able to get a staff of the woodlands is so powerful for druids, especially with the wall of thorns and the at will basically pass without trace. It's just really really powerful with using no charges from it. Especially if you're playing an artificer or something where you end up getting the certain level where you can use magic items regardless of race or class prerequisites. And then they have the ranged weapons that have slow, vexed, such like that, topple. It's interesting that they put a cleave onto those, but not on a battle axe. That's interesting. I wouldn't think the topple was like, kind of like a trip. Sap could daze or something like that, I believe, is probably what those are. I can see them all toppling. Something also to remember too, that is a small rule that's often overlooked by players, especially when I'm playing at conventions or online events. Players will come to the table, and as the rules stand now, if you're a small creature, if you're smaller than medium, and you're using a weapon that's heavy, you have disadvantage on your attack rolls with it. And I'll have players that will come to the table and they'll be playing like a halfling ranger or a gnome ranger using a longbow. And a longbow is a heavy weapon. Um, so I always have to remind them, you know, for purposes of playing, you know, you really should be using a short bow because that is a heavy weapon. You will have disadvantage on those. I generally, especially when players are paying for a game, I'm generally like, it's not a problem. You can use it. However, just so you know, there are going to be dungeon masters that are running at events and such like that that are going to be very, very specific on like the rules lawyer and DM that doesn't really allow things outside of what the rules as written are, which is how you are supposed to play Adventurers League. But sometimes there's those little things that we always talk about when we do adventures, especially when we've even done stuff. For Wizards of the Coast, we actually run a lot of in-game, in-house games for them when they have new materials come out as well. Also, so. All right, back on the side of the ad break. let's look at some of these weapon properties as mentioned here, like heavy, light, etc. Heavy weapons are unwieldy compared to other weapons. You have disadvantage on your attack rolls with a heavy weapon if it's a melee weapon and your strength score isn't at least 13. If it's a ranged weapon and your dexterity score isn't at least 13. So there looks like they're going to be changing that rule around, which is nice. So you can, that I was mentioning before, if you're small, you have disadvantage. They just changed it to the strength score and the dexterity score. That's pretty cool. Still funny to think of a longbow being taller and larger than a gnome or halfling that's wielding it, but it is a fantasy game, right? Light, when you take the attack action on your turn and attack with a light weapon, you can make it one extra attack as a bonus action later on the same turn. That extra attack must be made with a different light weapon, and you don't add your ability modifier to the extra attack's damage unless that modifier is negative. For example, if you take attack action on your turn, have a short sword in one hand and a dagger in the other, each of which has the light property. You can make one attack with each weapon using your action and a bonus action, but you don't add your strength or dexterity modifier to the damage roll of the bonus action unless the modifier is negative. Now that's an example, not the actual rule. So it's not saying that there are only dexterity and strength modifiers. It's just an example for that. It's actually the ability modifier that you're using in the attack. Like sometimes certain classes, subclasses let you substitute your wisdom modifier for your attack rolls, things like that. So it would still be whatever the ability modifier is that you're using for the attack. This weapon has a thrown property. You can throw the weapon to make a ranged attack and can draw that weapon as part of the action, which is really important. When you're talking about action economy and such like that, as it stands in 5th edition right now, you can draw your weapon as part of the free action to attack with it, but you cannot stow it. So like you cannot draw a sword, attack, then put it away and pull out your bow for the next turn. The players, a lot of players that I play with throughout the year and stuff like that, we kind of working through, they've gotten to the habit of, okay, well, I'm going to drop my sword and pull my bow, because dropping something doesn't cost any sort of action when it comes to action economy or anything like that. And I always say, your character, you don't have to remind me that you're going back to pick up your weapon. Your character would remember. That's something that I, as a DM, always like to try to do. You have a lot of DMs that say, oh, well, you didn't mention that you cast Mage Armor at the start of the day, so you don't have Mage Armor cast. You're going to have to cast that as your first action. And I'll have players that will come to the table and say, oh, man, I forgot to mention that I was going to cast Mage Armor, so I'll do that first, my first action and the combat. I'm like, your character would have remembered to have cast Mage Armor. I don't have a problem that you've state that you've already cast Mage Armor. Your character would remember that, so you can go ahead and have your Mage Armor, and then go ahead and you can take a different action on your turn. I don't know. I've been doing it for so long that it's very interesting to look back when I used to be that type of DM. So you didn't cast it. So you have to do that. The first thing you have to do is to cast that because you didn't say so. And I'm like, well, as I've gotten more experience DMing over the past 40 years now, it's like there's certain things that you don't have to be. The whole thing, again, at least from my approach, is from the story. The characters are the heroes, and trying to nitpick at small things here and there to throw obstacles. It's much more fun to throw different types of obstacles and challenges at the characters instead of the rules lawyering of, oh, well, you didn't say you cast it earlier on, so your character can't have that thing going on, which is why I always remind the players, hey, your character and you as the player are completely different. Your character will remember things that you as the player might not at the moment, especially when you're playing once a week or once a month, or however often you play. So you can draw it as part of the same action as throwing it. If the weapon's a melee weapon, use the same ability modifier for that attack roll and damage roll that we use for the melee attack with the weapon. Again, for example, strength or dex and such like that. Wisdom or Charisma if you have modified class traits that change those. All right, mastery properties. Each weapon now have mastery properties shown on the weapons table. That property is usable only by a character who has a feature such as weapon mastery that unlocks that property for the character. If a game feature lets you replace a weapon's mastery property with another, that weapon must meet any prerequisites specified for the new property. All right, cleave. The weapon must be heavy and a melee weapon. If it's a creature with an attack roll using this weapon, you can make an attack roll with the weapon against a second creature within 5 feet of the first that is also within your reach. On a hit, the second creature takes the weapon's damage, but you don't add your ability modifier to that damage unless the modifier is negative. You make this extra attack only once per turn. So it doesn't matter how many attacks you have. Like, say, for example, you have extra attack at 5th level, so you get 2 attacks with your, let's say, halberd. So you swing, you hit one creature with your halberd. You can take that second, on a hit, you can make an extra attack against another creature like right beside it. As long as you have weapon mastery, using the halberd, it's a melee weapon. It's got the heavy property, so you're using the cleave mastery property of it. So you attack with your first attack. You can take that extra attack and then you can take your extra attack from your feature after that, but you cannot use the cleave on that because you can only use that extra attack from cleave once per turn. That's pretty cool. Graze. So if you miss a creature, you can deal damage to that creature equal to the ability modifier used to make the attack roll. Damage is the same type dealt by the weapon, and the damage can't be increased in any way other than increasing the ability modifier. So you can't like use like an arcane jolt if you're a artificer or something like that on the graze. The graze damage is just your ability modifier and is the damage type that is dealt by the weapon. When you make if it's got the nick property on a light weapon, it doesn't have to be melee. It can be light ranged or melee. When you make the extra attack of the light property, you can make it as part of the attack action instead of a bonus action. You can make this extra attack only once per turn. That's actually kind of cool, which would allow you to, a 2-weapon fighter, if you're fighting with your 2 light weapons. Now, keep in mind, general rules can always be broken by specific rules. So, for example, as it stands right now with the light property, there are certain class features and feats that would allow you to use these types of attacks with weapons that don't have the light property. Most likely, it's going to be weapons that don't have the heavy property. So, like, for example, if you have a fighter that just wants to be dex-based and you have 2-weapon fighting and you have dual wielding where your weapons don't have to be light for 2-hand fighting, you can use 2 rapiers. You could also take a different bonus action. If you have the nick property on the weapons. As long as they're light, they have the nick property. With weapon mastery, there's lots of different specific things you can change around with your weapon mastery stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how players use those. Push, if you hit a creature with this weapon, let's see, heavy, 2-handed, or versatile. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you can, it's going to be very interesting. So it's got to be, because up here it makes it seem as it has to be a melee weapon and have the heavy property, has to be a melee weapon and have the heavy property, has to be a light, has to have a light property, and this one says it's got to be heavy, 2-handed, or versatile. So I'm wondering if that takes away these two, heavy and 2-handed, and replaces it with versatile. Like, for example, a longsword is neither heavy nor is it 2-handed, but it is versatile. You can use it with 2 hands. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you can push the creature up to 10 feet straight away from yourself if it's large or smaller. And and there is no save. Sap. If you hit a creature with this weapon, that creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. See, some of these things I would like to see them kind of reverse them. That way they're not putting as much onus on the DM. For example, yes, a character can keep track of themselves in case the DM does forget that, but it would almost be better for it to say, if you hit a creature with this weapon, that creature has a disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. It should be something along the lines of, if you hit a creature with this weapon, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. So like, say you do sap it at the end, like if you have one attack, you sap it, the next turn, before the end of your turn, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature. That way it's something that the player is responsible for tracking instead of the DM tracking. But that's just, again, just my first thought. Slow. No prerequisite. If you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to that creature, you can reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. If you hit the creature more than once with this property, the speed reduction doesn't exceed 10 feet. That's not too hard to track in person. I should say, in using VTTs, you have a number of token markers that you can use to mark those. In person, you have the little rings and things like that you can mark conditions on tokens or on miniatures and such like that. Well, I guess it's not really too difficult to track, but so we have topple. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you can force the creature to make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the creature has a prone condition. See, I'd like to see them add that to push. The fact that they don't get a save with push, just as I don't know. And Vex. If you hit a creature with a weapon and deal damage to that creature, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. See? So they put Vex in there instead of Sap. So I don't know. It's almost as if they have two things that could really be the same. All right, those are the weapon properties. Adventuring gear, they've taken the net off of being a weapon now. And you can also attack it. Change the packs up a little bit. And all the packs also, they mentioned earlier, all of the packs, like your priest pack and things like that, all the adventuring packs are all going to have the same price. There's not going to be any difference in the prices. Priest pack contains a backpack, blanket, holy water, lamp, rations, robe, and tinderbox. Rules glossary. All right, this is the rules glossary. So some of the changes for the playtest document, as well as terms such as creature type that aren't defined in the 2014 Player's Handbook. The term doesn't appear here. Use this definition in the 2014 Player's Handbook. And when playtesting this document, don't use the rules glossary of any other Unearthed Arcana article because, again, as I mentioned earlier, they are updated for each playtest that comes out, updating from the surveys that they give to the players and the playtesters, and then kind of alter those a little bit. right, armor training is the new name for armor proficiency. An existing rule that involves armor proficiency now applies to armor training. If you wear light, medium, or heavy armor and lack armor training with that type of armor, you have disadvantage on any d20 test you make that involves strength or dexterity, and you can't cast spells. If you equip a shield and lack armor training with it, you don't gain the armor class bonus of the shield. Cool. Attack as an action. When you take the attack action, you can make one attack with a weapon or an unarmed strike. Equipping and unequipping weapons. You can either equip or unequip one weapon when you make an attack as part of this action. You do so either before or after the attack. If you equip a weapon before the attack, you don't need to use it for that attack. Equipping a weapon includes drawing it from a sheath, picking it up, or retrieving it from a container. Unequipping a weapon includes sheathing, stowing it, or dropping it. If you move on your turn... Okay, so hold on real quick. So unequipping a weapon includes dropping it now. Before, you could sheath, it would be part of the action to sheath or stow it, and dropping wouldn't be any part of that at all. You could just simply drop it. Now they're making it to where dropping it is part of the unequipping it. Interesting. If you move on your turn, movement between attacks. If you move on your turn, you can use some or all of that movement to move between the attacks as this action. If you have a feature such as extra attack, that gives you more than one attack as part of the action. Blind sight. If you have blind sight, you can see within a specific range without relying on physical sight. Within that range, you can effectively see anything that isn't behind total cover, even if you have the blinded condition or you're in darkness. Moreover, in that range, you can effectively see a creature that has the invisible condition. Climb speed can be used to traverse vertical surface without expending extra movement normally associated with climbing. Some creatures have the spider climb trait, which allows their climb speed to work even on the underside of horizontal surfaces. And all creatures have creature type. Most of them obviously are humanoid for the player characters. List of the game's creature types. Aberration, beast, celestial construct, dragon, elemental, fey, fiend, giant, humanoid, monstrosity, use plant, or undead. It's pretty much the same as they are right now. These types don't have rules themselves, but some rules in the game affect creatures of certain types in different ways. For example, the description of Charm Person spell specifies that its target must be a humanoid. Like for Cure Wounds, it doesn't work on undead or constructs. They're still wanting to really change everything and go with D20 tests for some reason, but okay. Term D20 test encompasses 3 main D20 rolls of the game: ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. If something in the game affects D20 tests, it affects all of them: ability rolls, attack rolls, and saving throws. Dazed. If you're dazed, you can move or take one action on your turn, not both. You also can't take a bonus action or reaction. So they're also taking away, which is I like it. They're taking away the situation where even your companions are, like, for example, in 5th edition as it stands now, you cannot move through the space of a enemy, but you can move through the space of an ally. Unless they're tiny, it does cause difficult. It is difficult terrain for movement purposes. So moving through your companion takes 10 feet of movement instead of just 5 feet. Now they're getting rid of that. Also, you can always move through tiny creature spaces. without anything. Furniture, heavy snow, heavy undergrowth, ice, liquid that's between shin and waist deep. Any deeper and you need to swim. That's going to be very interesting when it comes to sizes, obviously, which is fine. There are opening size for a creature one size smaller, pit or another gap of 2 to 5 feet, rubble, slopes of 20 degrees or more. DMA determined other things make up difficult terrain. Cool. Expertise is a special feature that enhances your use of a particular skill proficiency. If you gain expertise, you gain it in one skill in which you have proficiency. You never have expertise in the same skill proficiency more than once. Make an ability check with a skill proficiency in which you have expertise. Your proficiency bonus is doubled. So they did change this here now, which is actually came up in a situation last night in one of my client games. The fly speed. Currently, the only thing in 5th edition is if they have a fly speed and they're knocked prone, they'll fall unless they have the hover trait. Now they did, you can see they underlined incapacitated as well. Because they paralyzed one of the flying creature last night, and when they're paralyzed, we also use the newest updated rules and Dragons of Storm Wreck Isle, whereas when you're paralyzed, you're also incapacitated, and even incapacitated in 5th edition as it is right now doesn't cause you to fall. If you have the hover trait, or if to cause you to fall, you actually have to have the prone condition. And now it also says your fly speed reduced to 0. Will have you fall now as well. That's awesome. I did like that clarification. I like that a lot. Grappled. Speed is 0 and can't change. Disadvantage when attack rolls against any target other than the grappler. Grappler can drag or carry you when it moves, but every feet of movement costs an extra foot, unless you are tiny or 2 or more sizes smaller than the grappler. That's interesting too. That's cool because like a giant can grapple you. Say a giant's huge and you're just a medium character. They should be able to move you without having to spend extra movement, which is nice. Again, strength athletics with dexterity acrobatics against the escape DC. Basically, also how you do that when you're grappled. Grappling is usually a opposed check anyway. The grappler makes a strength athletics check, and the defender makes a strength athletics check or a dexterity acrobatics check. If the person attempting to grapple gets the highest check, then they successfully grapple a person. And that doesn't set the DC for every turn. It basically is reset every turn as well. If you want to try to escape the grapple, the grappler, I should say, should make another strength athletics check, and that sets the DC for the person to escape the grapple. Some monsters already have those DCs already set, and the monster's attacks obviously use those if they're already set there. If they're not set, just reset the DC, the target DC every turn. Help action. Assistant ability check. DM always has a final say on whether your assistance is possible. I generally don't let people use the help action on Thieves' Tools checks, mostly because it's small, tight work, and it's really difficult. There really has to be a great reason for the using assist on the ability checks, or on Thieves' Tools checks. And this is something, too, that I'd really like to see them kind of specify out when it comes to familiars. For example, an owl has flyby. So a lot of times they will fly the familiar over to give advantage on the attack roll, but because it has flyby, they can leave without provoking an attack of opportunity. Yes, and most of the time I don't argue with players about this because you can momentarily distract an enemy within 5 feet of you, giving an advantage on the next attack roll. I really like to see them clarify the distraction of if they have to remain within 5 feet, or you can, like, for example, move up, use your action to help your companion because that person's within 5 feet, and then use like a bonus action to disengage and move away. They did kind of, I guess they did kind of clarify there because it didn't say anything about moving away, though. I'd really like to see them put that in there just so it makes it more clear. Advantage, only one at a time. It's just basically inspiration. And they did change inspiration now that you can use it basically as a reroll after. You don't have to declare it beforehand. In 5th edition, contrary to how a lot of DMs and players use it, inspiration is supposed to be used before you make the check. They are changing it now because so many players use it as a reroll that they're changing it into just being a reroll immediately after rolling the d20. I'm not, but this, like, for example, they do mention this here. I'm not a big fan of forcing it into the game. Some DMs feel uncomfortable using inspiration or heroic advantage, whatever you want to call it, and they don't use it a lot. I always let my players know when they sit down at the table to play, hey, don't forget you have inspiration. Use it. You can get it back a lot during the game. I like to use it as a storytelling element. When they do something, like they said, particularly heroic or in character, it's really fun. Also, when sometimes a good joke or a good laugh about the situation or a serious thing about a situation can also get a player their character's inspiration back. And we are finishing up an ad break here, and it is a little after the top of the hour. So as soon as this ad break is finished up here on Twitch, we'll go ahead and call an end to the stream. All right, back on this side of the ad break. It is a little after the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and end the stream for today. We do have a few more things to go over. A lot of these really cool definitions and everything in the end of this glossary. Hopefully we'll get some new playtest material in the next week or so, but we'll go ahead and pick up with the hide action after that, and we'll go through all of these because there's some discussions of long rests and different things. We want to kind of talk about exhaustion. They're changing the way exhaustion works as well, so we'll definitely take a look at that next Wednesday on our Tavern Talks with Shifty Boar. We will be back tomorrow for our dungeon delving stream from 2 to 4 p.m. on Thursdays and Fridays. We won't be back on this Friday because of the virtual D&D weekend, So what I might do is let's just go ahead and say that we might go ahead and do our dungeon delving tomorrow. We'll probably just jump on and we had been playing Baldur's Gate 3. I do have some difficulty streaming it as my PC is for running the game and streaming it is a little slow. So we might look into perhaps maybe going back to some Lord of the Rings Online tomorrow. That have had a lot of changes in that game as well. But either way, we will be back Sunday for episode 10 of our Fandelver and Below live D&D stream. That's 7 p.m. Eastern time here on Master Dungeons Twitch channel. So definitely come back Sunday evening to check out our live play game here on Twitch, playing Fandelver and Below the Shattered Obelisk. Of course, thanks for watching today. Thanks to all our supporters, especially our patrons from Patreon. If you'd like to help support the channel, please consider becoming a patron or subbing here on Twitch, twitch.tv/themasterofdungeons. We'd love your Prime subs as well. If you have Amazon Prime, connect that to your Twitch account. You get one free sub every month. We do have a Prime sub reminder up on the screen on our stream as we're streaming. Also, we are planning on starting to simulcast on another streaming network in addition to streaming with Twitch. That would be kick.com. If you go to kick.com/Master of Dungeons and give us a follow there, that would be much appreciated. Once we get up to 75 followers over there on Kick, we're going to start doing some test streams outside of our normal Twitch schedule, and then eventually be able to stream our live games simultaneously on both Twitch and Kick. Of course, the link to our Patreon page, as well as our YouTube channel and all of our social media accounts, can be found in the About Us section below here on Twitch. If you would subscribe to us on YouTube, it is free. Check out the videos. If you like them, give us a like and comment on them. Share them as well. If you want to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, give us some likes, retweets, all of that good stuff. Every sub, like, and share helps us immensely. Again, that is found in our social media links down below in the About Us section here on Twitch. As I mentioned earlier, you can also support us by clicking on the About Us section and click on the Discord panel and join the Master of Dungeons Community Discord server, where you're going to help shape an accepting, caring, and inclusive D&D community. And finally, the merch store is open. We have some awesome t-shirts on there, hoodie, some glassware, as well as some hats and such like that. Purchasing something through the merch store will definitely help support the channel. And that will bring us to a close. We'll pick back up next Wednesday with the hide action. So have a great rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend, and hopefully we'll see you on Sunday for some Fandelver and Below the Shattered Obelisk. So have a great rest of your day again. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy adventuring. Take care.